You tell yourself this is the last bet. Just one more spin, one more hand, one more chance to win back what you lost. You know the odds are against you. You know the house always wins. You know you should walk away, but you can't. Your brain is screaming at you to keep going, convincing you that the next one will be different, that you'll do for a win, that you just need to break even and then you'll stop. 5 minutes later, you've lost more, and you still can't stop. In the next 25 minutes, we're diving into why gambling is one of the most psychologically addictive activities humans engage in. How casinos and apps weaponize neuroscience to keep you hooked. Why your brain treats losses as motivation to continue rather than warnings to quit. And most importantly, how to recognize when entertainment has become compulsion. This isn't about judging gamblers. This is about understanding the psychological machinery that makes gambling uniquely dangerous to the human brain. Let's expose the system. Welcome back to Psychopath, where we decode your mind. If you want to understand why some behaviors feel impossible to stop, hit subscribe because this gets into the neuroscience of addiction. Let's start with the fundamental mechanism that makes gambling so addictive: intermittent reinforcement. This is the single most powerful behavioral conditioning tool ever discovered, and it's the backbone of all gambling. Here's how it works. When a behavior is rewarded every single time, you learn the pattern quickly. Press button, get reward. Press button, get reward. Simple, but you also extinguish the behavior quickly when rewards stop. Press button, no reward. Press button, no reward. You stop pressing. But when rewards come unpredictably, sometimes after one action, sometimes after 10, sometimes not at all, your brain can't form a clear pattern. It keeps trying to figure out the rule that doesn't exist. And that uncertainty is neurologically intoxicating. Neuroscience research using fMRI scans shows that unpredictable rewards trigger more dopamine release than predictable ones. Your brain's reward center, the nucleus accumbens, doesn't just activate when you win. It activates in anticipation of a possible win. The uncertainty itself becomes the reward. This is why slot machines are more addictive than almost any other form of gambling. They're pure, intermittent reinforcement. You have zero control over the outcome, zero skill involved, just pure randomness. And your brain can't resist that. Every pull is a lottery ticket. Every spin could be the big one. Psychologist B.F. Skinner demonstrated this in the 1950s using pigeons. He put them in boxes with buttons that sometimes gave food rewards. When the rewards came randomly, the pigeons became obsessed. They'd press the button thousands of times without food. Far more than pigeons who got predictable rewards. The uncertainty drove compulsive behavior. Humans are the same. We're neurologically wired to keep trying when outcomes are uncertain but possible. Gambling exploits this wiring ruthlessly. Now, let's talk about the near-miss effect, one of the most insidious psychological tricks casinos use. A near miss is when you almost win but don't. 2 cherries instead of 3. Your team loses by 1 point. You're 1 number away from the jackpot. Logically, a near miss is a loss. You didn't win. You lost your bet. But psychologically, your brain doesn't process it that way. Research shows that near misses activate the same reward pathways as actual wins. Your brain sees evidence that you are close, that victory is achievable, that you just need to try again. Slot machines are deliberately programmed to produce near misses more often than pure randomness would create. They know that showing you 2 out of 3 symbols triggers the feeling that you're on the verge of winning. And that feeling is more motivating than actually winning sometimes. Because winning brings temporary satisfaction that might make you walk away. Near misses create frustration and hope simultaneously, the perfect emotional cocktail to keep you playing. Here's where it gets darker. The sunk cost fallacy. This cognitive bias makes humans irrationally continue investing in losing propositions because they've already invested so much. You've lost $500. Rationally, that money is gone. The smart decision is to stop and prevent further loss. But your brain doesn't want to accept the loss as final. It wants redemption. It tells you that if you quit now, the $500 is definitely gone. But if you keep playing, you might win it back. The loss becomes an investment that you need to justify. This is why gamblers chase losses. It's not stupidity. It's your brain trying to avoid the psychological pain of accepting permanent loss. Every additional bet becomes an attempt to retroactively make the previous losses worth it. And casinos know this. That's why they make it easy to keep betting and hard to cash out. They want you locked in the sunk cost trap. Let's discuss the illusion of control. The psychological phenomenon where people believe they can influence outcomes that are actually random. This is everywhere in gambling. Dice players throw harder for high numbers, softer for low numbers, as if force matters in randomness. Lottery players pick their own numbers instead of random quick picks, even though odds are identical, because choosing feels like control. Sports bettors convince themselves they have insider knowledge or analytical skills that give them an edge. Ignoring the professional gamblers with far more information still lose long-term. Slot machine players believe certain machines are hot or due to pay out, even though every spin is independent and random. The brain desperately wants to feel like skill matters, because skill is something you can improve. Randomness is terrifying because it means you're powerless. So your brain manufactures patterns and control where none exist. And every time you win after employing your strategy, it reinforces the illusion. You think you cracked the code. You didn't. You got lucky. Now let's talk about the gambler's fallacy, one of the most persistent cognitive errors in gambling. This is the belief that past outcomes influence future independent events. The roulette wheel has landed on black 5 times in a row. Your brain screams that red is now more likely. It's not. Every spin is independent. The wheel has no memory. The odds are exactly the same every time. But humans are pattern-seeking machines. We evolved to detect patterns because real patterns exist in nature and recognizing them helped us survive. The problem is, we also see patterns where none exist. We think random streaks are meaningful. We think the universe corrects itself toward averages in small samples, when actually it only averages out over millions of trials. Professional gamblers know this. That is why they can exploit amateur gamblers who make decisions based on perceived patterns that are unreal. Here is something most people aren't realize. Gambling addiction has a lot in common with substance addiction at the neurological level. Brain imaging studies show that gambling activates the same reward circuits as cocaine or alcohol. The ventral tegmental area produces dopamine. The nucleus accumbens processes the reward. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for impulse control, shows reduced activity in both gambling addicts and drug addicts. Over time, chronic gambling changes brain structure. Dopamine receptors downregulate, meaning you need bigger bets, bigger risks, bigger potential payouts to get the same neurological high. This is tolerance, the same mechanism that makes drug users need increasing doses. And just like substance withdrawal, gambling withdrawal is real. When a compulsive gambler stops, they experience anxiety, irritability, restlessness, depression. Their brain is going through dopamine withdrawal. They're not just upset about losing money. Their neurochemistry is destabilized. Let me tell you about Michael's story to illustrate how gambling addiction develops. Michael started with sports betting in college, small bets with friends, mostly for fun. He won sometimes, lost sometimes, no big deal. Then he graduated, got a good job, had disposable income. The bets got bigger. He started using betting apps, which made it effortless. No need to go to a casino or bookie. Just tap your phone and bet on anything, anytime. He won $2,000 one weekend and felt like a genius. That win, neuroscientists would tell you, was the worst thing that could have happened. It created a reference point, a neurological memory that gambling can produce major rewards. From then on, his brain was chasing that feeling. The losses started piling up. $500 here, $1,000 there. He told himself he'd stop after winning it back, but every win just funded more betting. Now let's discuss how gambling companies design their products to maximize addiction. Every element is deliberate. The sounds, the lights, the layout, the speed, all of it is based on psychological research about what keeps people playing longest. Slot machines make celebratory noises and flash lights, even on losses, as long as you win back any amount, even if it's less than you bet. You bet $5, win $2, and the machine acts like you won. Your brain gets a mini reward for a net loss. Casinos remove clocks and windows, so you lose track of time. They offer free drinks to lower inhibitions and impair judgment. They use chips instead of cash because chips feel like play money, psychologically disconnecting you from the real financial loss. Online gambling apps use push notifications timed to catch you during vulnerable moments. They offer free bets that aren't free because you still lose real money, you just didn't risk your own money first. They show you other people's wins to trigger FOMO. Every mechanic is designed to keep you in the flow state where you stop thinking critically and just keep playing. Here's something critical about the psychology of wins and losses. The pain of losing feels roughly twice as strong as the pleasure of winning. This is called loss aversion, and it's well documented in behavioral economics. Losing $100 feels worse than winning $100 feels good. Rationally, this means gambling is a terrible deal psychologically. Even if you win as often as you lose, you're experiencing more total negative emotion. But here's the trick. Gambling companies know this, so they manipulate how losses feel. They make losses happen gradually and ambiguously. You're playing a slot machine. You lose most spins, but occasional small wins break up the losses. You'll never feel like you lost $500 in one catastrophic moment. You'll feel like you had a session with ups and downs, and it just happened to end down. The gradual loss is psychologically easier to tolerate than one big loss, even though the end result is identical. And every small win, even if it's less than you bet, creates a positive emotional spike that partially offsets the loss pain. You're being emotionally manipulated into accepting financial loss. Let's talk about the role of cognitive distortions in gambling addiction. These are irrational thought patterns that compulsive gamblers develop over time. I'm due for a win is the gambler's fallacy. I almost won, so I'm close is the near-miss illusion. This machine is hot is the illusion of control. I can win back my losses if I just keep playing is the sunk cost fallacy. I have a system as overconfidence in pattern recognition. These aren't just casual errors. They've read deeply held beliefs that the gambler's brain uses to justify continued play despite mounting evidence that they should stop. And the scary part is, occasional wins reinforce all of these beliefs. If you feel lucky and then win, your brain records that as evidence that your intuition works. If you bet on your favorite team and they win, your brain records that as evidence of your sports knowledge. These random reinforcements make the cognitive distortions incredibly hard to shake. They feel validated by experience, even though statistically they're nonsense. Here's the really dark part. Gambling advertising increasingly targets vulnerable populations. Studies show that gambling ads are most effective on people with low income, low education, mental health issues, and existing addiction problems. These are the people most likely to develop gambling addiction and least able to afford the losses. And the ads are everywhere now. Sports broadcasts, social media, YouTube, podcasts. The normalization of gambling, especially sports betting, has made it seem like harmless entertainment instead of a high-risk activity. And for many people, it is just entertainment. But for a subset of the population, around 2 to 3% of adults, gambling becomes compulsive. They can't stop. And that subset generates a disproportionate amount of gambling revenue. Estimates suggest that problem gamblers account for 30 to 60% of gambling industry profits. The industry isn't sustained by casual recreational gamblers. It's sustained by addicts. Now let's address the neuroscience of why some people become addicted while others don't. Genetic factors play a role. People with certain variations in dopamine receptor genes are more susceptible to all forms of addiction, including gambling. People with ADHD, which involves dopamine dysregulation, are at higher risk. People with existing mental health conditions like depression or anxiety often use gambling as emotional regulation, which creates a reinforcing loop where losses worsen mental health, driving more gambling to escape those feelings. Environmental factors matter too. Early exposure to gambling normalizes it. Financial stress paradoxically increases gambling because people feel desperate for a big win to solve their problems. Even though gambling statistically worsens financial problems, accessibility matters. The easier it is to gamble, the more people will develop problems. The explosion of online gambling and sports betting apps has created a generation of gamblers who never set foot in a casino but are still addicted. Here's a question most people you won't ask. Why is gambling legal and regulated when it has all the hallmarks of addictive substances? The answer is complicated. Historically, gambling has been socially accepted in many cultures. It's seen as entertainment, not a drug. And economically, governments benefit from gambling through taxation and licensing fees. It's a revenue stream, so the incentives aren't aligned with public health. Instead, the approach is responsible gambling, which puts the burden on individuals to control their behavior. Even though the psychological mechanisms making gambling addictive are the same ones that make substance abuse uncontrollable for many people. It's like telling an alcoholic to drink responsibly. For some people, moderation is impossible once addiction develops. And the gambling industry, much like the tobacco industry before it, spends enormous resources lobbying against stricter regulations, funding studies that downplay addiction rates, and positioning themselves as entertainment companies rather than addiction facilitators. So how do you know if gambling has crossed from entertainment into compulsion? Here are the clinical markers. You're gambling with money you can't afford to lose. You're lying to people about your gambling or hiding it. You're chasing losses, betting more to try to win back what you lost. You're experiencing emotional distress, anxiety, depression, or irritability related to gambling. You've tried to stop or cut back and can't. Gambling is interfering with work, relationships, or responsibilities. You're borrowing money or selling possessions to fund gambling. You're thinking about gambling constantly, even when not doing it. These aren't moral failings. These are symptoms of addiction. And if you recognize them in yourself or someone you care about, it's time to seek help. Gambling addiction is treatable, but not through willpower alone. It requires therapeutic intervention, often cognitive behavioral therapy, to address the distorted thinking patterns. Sometimes medication to address underlying mental health conditions or dopamine dysregulation, and always support systems to maintain recovery. Here's the practical defense framework. If you choose to gamble, which is your right, set hard limits before you start. Decide how much money you're willing to lose. Treat it as the cost of entertainment, and when it's gone, stop. Never gamble with money earmarked for bills, savings, or necessities. Never chase losses. The moment you're thinking, I just need to win back what I lost, that's the psychological trap activating. Walk away. Don't gamble when you're emotional, whether sad, angry, stressed, or even overly excited. Emotional states impair rational decision-making. Set time limits. Gambling for hours puts you in a trance state where critical thinking shuts down. Take breaks. Step outside. Check in with reality. Avoid alcohol while gambling. It lowers inhibitions and impairs judgment, making you more likely to make bigger, riskier bets. And if you notice any of the warning signs of compulsion, stop completely and talk to someone. There's no shame in recognizing a problem early. Here's something important. Gambling addiction doesn't just affect the gambler. It devastates families. Financial ruin from gambling leads to lost homes, drained retirement accounts, educational funds gone. The lying and secrecy destroy trust in relationships. Children grow up in households with financial instability and stress. Spouses are left trying to manage the fallout. And the suicide rate among compulsive gamblers is higher than almost any other addiction. The combination of financial desperation, shame, and neurochemical withdrawal creates a perfect storm of psychological crisis. This is why gambling addiction is a public health issue, not just individual bad choices. The costs extend far beyond the individual gambler. So here's your challenge. If you gamble, evaluate honestly whether it's entertainment or compulsion. Ask yourself the screening questions. Can you stop when you planned to? Are you betting money you can afford to lose? Are you honest with people about your gambling? If the answers raise concerns, reach out for help before it gets worse. And if you don't gamble, understand that for some people, the psychological pull is overwhelming. It's not about being weak or stupid. It's about neuroscience and psychological vulnerability that gambling companies deliberately exploit for profit. And if this video made you realize the depth of psychological manipulation in gambling, the next one breaks down how your brain tricks you into buying things you don't need. Because the same principles of behavioral manipulation apply across all consumer contexts. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and remember, your brain is vulnerable to psychological exploitation. Understanding the mechanisms is your best defense.